Let's talk a little bit about making changes to your golf swing. So I have players all the time that, of course, that I work with, and we talk through different options of things we can do, exaggerating feels to make sure that changes are being made. But I also have a lot of players reach out to me saying that they struggle with similar things that I do that I'll post about, of getting stuck underneath, big two-way misses, contact issues from time to time, and kind of what I did to fix them. So I'm going to use my own swing as an example here, kind of going over things that I've done to kind of improve the swing and how I practice it, and how you can start to kind of choose different routes when it comes to fixing your swing, knowing there's usually more than one way to do things, and how to exaggerate those changes. So recently I had a call with my own coach and mentor that I've learned a ton from, Shaheen. And what we went over were basically 3 options when it came to my golf swing of things that we can do. One of them I absolutely hated. One I was against at first, but I've kind of bled into the swing, which I will talk about. But the whole point of this, again, is to know there's usually more than one way to do things. And if you are struggling with the same issues that I am, these are the things that I have done. So if you look at my swing in slow motion, the big issue I have is I get the hands very across the chest. I really get my left arm or my lead arm stretching across the chest very early. It gets very low and inside. I get a little draggy with the takeaway, kind of keeping hands in, club out, and a little hooded. And from there, I really get the arms stretching across where my arms get pretty far back behind me. So when you have the hands so far behind you, that gets the hands and the weight of the club very behind, which typically makes the club want to shallow. So if you're a player that gets steep, this may not be a bad thing. You may need to feel like you're turning more, getting that lead arm a little more across the chest to get this club behind you. I do too much of it. So from here, the tendency is going to be, as I work down, I get the club very far stuck back behind me. Club gets very lost behind me, leads to a lot of two-way misses where I will get stuck underneath, block it out to the right, get stuck, release it, hit flip hooks over to the left, or have contact issues. When I'm swinging it very poorly, I get a lot of heel thins or the occasional topped wood. That is how I know I need to exaggerate this, where that club gets so far wrapped around, gets very underneath, I get stuck way from the inside, swing way too up on it, and that is where I will kind of hit it off the heel and thin it a little bit. So that's how I know I have to start exaggerating feels, when I start getting the two-way misses or have contact issues. So what we talked about were basically 3 different options to not get this club kind of so stuck on the way down. So option number 1 was we work on the takeaway initially. That kind of starts this cascade of events where I have a tendency to really get the hands low and inside. Club stays very out though, but this kind of gets the cascade of events starting where the hands are too in. That is going to get the arms very across the chest, which again leads to getting stuck. So the first thing we talked about was we can feel like the hands are kind of staying more down the toe line, not kind of ripping over around towards my back pocket. Feel like the hands are working a little bit more outside, and feel like there's a little bit of rotation of the forearms to not get this club face so shut and outside. Feel like as we start to rotate the forearms and keep the hands in front, that club is going to open up a little bit, stay a little bit more in line with the hands, not get, again, so draggy with the hands inside. Absolutely hate this feel. Shut this one down very quickly, and if there's a feel that doesn't work for you, don't be afraid to voice that to a coach. I've hated this feel for a long time, where I don't like anything that has to do with forearm rotation. I don't like feeling like this club face is opening. Some players love feels with the hands. I absolutely hate it. I cannot time that up, and I am not a big fan of getting that club face rolling open. That is a feel that I was very against very quickly, and that's where we kind of went over some different avenues that we could kind of get this club less behind me with. So that shut down very quickly, not adding forearm rotation. So the next thing that we talked about was we keep the backswing the same, where the hands get a little bit more behind me and we just kind of accept it. But from here, I really have to exaggerate getting the body open and getting this club and the hands back and in front of me so they can exit low and left around the body, not get stuck way underneath with this big high right finish. So that is a feel that worked for me for quite a while throughout this summer and played very well. Dropped the handicap by 2.5 shots, was hitting the ball great. But I would kind of go through phases where I would get it for a couple weeks and then lose it for a couple weeks and get it for a couple weeks and lose it for a few weeks, just feeling like no matter how hard I turned, my arms still wanted to stay back behind me. So that is one where I liked the idea of it, but I knew I just couldn't really do it consistently. So the third option we talked about was feeling like we keep the hands more in front of the body, accepting the takeaway is going to look weird. Because if I feel like my hands aren't wrapping low and inside, but I feel like my hands are staying a little bit wider and kind of staying in front of my chest a little bit more, not ripping way across the chest. But I don't do anything with the forearms or rotate the club. If I'm so used to this move where the club stays way outside, but now I start feeling like my hands are more outside, that club is going to get way out, which looks funky. It doesn't look very textbook. But what it does is it at least allows my hands to stay more in front of my chest. So now it's much easier to get this club in front and exit left to neutralize the path, not get way back in through here where I get stuck. So that one I was kind of against because I filmed a couple and it looked very funky, it looked very awkward, but I hit it well. So I was kind of torn where I was like, you know, do I care about the aesthetics a whole lot or more of the performance? And that is where I eventually settled sort of in between, where I've developed a feel kind of with options 2 and 3, where it's not super exaggerated when I swing full. You don't see my hands pushing way out in front and really chopping across the golf ball. But this is where it starts getting into the real versus feel of things. Because what I felt like when I was kind of getting these hands way out in front is I felt like on these rehearsals, I was pushing my hands way out away from me, getting the club in this position. And I would look on video and my hands were still too far behind me. And that is where, again, I would get a little underneath. So I had to kind of blend these feels of feeling like the hands stay more in front and the body clears. So if you've ever watched any of the playing videos, the longer form ones, or seen me doing rehearsals on here, what my rehearsals have looked like lately and for the past couple weeks here is pretty much I get set up and I feel like my hands stay very out and in front of me and I chop across the golf ball. It looks like I'm basically practicing getting the club way in front and hitting massive slices. That is what my rehearsal has to feel like and look like, just because my tendency is to get so the other way. I get so inside and across and underneath that I have to feel way in front and across just to be able to get that ball to come out somewhat neutral. So the lesson here is if you have multiple options, don't be afraid to voice that to a coach where one does not work for you. Usually, not in all cases, but a lot of the times there are multiple ways to go about things. But also don't be afraid to exaggerate. Once you do get a feel, that is where before every ball I hit, it looks like I'm setting up to hit the biggest slice you've ever seen. And then when I go ahead and I actually hit a ball, that swing is going to look nothing like that. And that felt to me like I hit the biggest slice I possibly could, and that path is going to be still 1.2 degrees into out. So that's where videoing the swing can help, that's where working with the coach can help, but that's just a little insight to kind of what I've been working on. I've been playing very well this summer working on those feels, but don't be afraid to kind of talk through different feels with the coach, and when you do get them, don't be afraid to exaggerate those feels like crazy.